It's not just a 40.
Okay.
You good?
Yeah.
Okay, I have a 6 p.m. or scheduled start time. I'd like to welcome everybody to our July 26, 2021 meeting of the Susquehanna Township Planning Commission. It's nice to be back in person again after 15 months or something like that. So, yeah, glad to be back. Okay, moving on to our agenda. Do we have any public comment for items not related to the agenda? Okay, hearing none, moving on to our next agenda item, which is
testimony was so overwhelming that we are convinced beyond a reasonable doubt that
minutes.
the jury would have convicted
Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes as
So moved.
motion to approve the minutes? Or hear a second on that motion?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say yes.
Yes. Yes.
Opposed say no. Okay, minutes have been approved. Moving on to our subdivision and land development plans. Any changes to our items here?
No.
Okay, so if anybody is interested in the houses at Oakhurst, it has been tabled. So check back with the township on the status of that plan sometime between now and our next meeting. So moving on to our first agenda item, the enclave at Elmerton.
Hello. Is this on? My name is Lauren Kelly with RJ Fisher and Associates. Enclave at Elmerton is a 156-unit townhome development on approximately 25 acres. This is its second time in front of the Planning Commission. The plan has already been here, and we just received our second round of comments from HRG, the township staff, as well as our first round of comments from the Design Review Committee. Technically, we don't have any issue or foresee any issue addressing those comments. I believe Triple Crown is working on compiling all the information for the Design Review Committee at this time. This is Chris DeSanto here with Triple Crown as well. So we'd be happy to discuss any questions you all may have at this point of the plan.
Okay, thank you. Betsy, any update from the township's review of the plan, and I guess especially coming out of the Design Review Committee?
Yeah, so under comment, my first comment under the, we met as a design review committee, and there was a couple of questions that came up as far as to whether or not they were considered part of the text amendment or not, I guess. So that was whether or not they should be providing additional green space within the front yards, which is item 1.1 in TCA comments, and then the central open space requirements as far as items 1.4 and 3.1 in TCA comments. As you'll recall, there's a text amendment and a map amendment to allow this property to be VOR. With that, they were following the neighborhood design development guidelines.
Okay, so help me out with your comment numbers.
Under staff review comments, and then it links to TCA's comments. So on page 2, 1A.
Okay, there it is.
References the new ordinance that was approved. It says additional green space shall be provided within front yards and front entry garages shall be paired, except for end units. That's to clarify and demonstrate how additional green space has been provided within the front yards. So the driveways have been paired together, and the question was regarding the additional green space. And I'll apologize now. I'm trying to, there's more people online than I anticipated, so I'm trying to do both. Try to answer as best as I can.
Okay. Let's just kind of hold that thought for now. Mr. Grubik, would you like to go over your comments?
I'd like to get Alex Greenlee from our
Okay.
office to review the comments. As Lauren indicated, you have taken a look at our comments that we have submitted for this round of review. And most of them are very technical in nature, I guess I presume. So if you and Alex have a dialogue in terms of which ones you want to concentrate on.
All right, thank you. So most of our comments are general in nature as far as the subdivision, the Saldo comments. One requirement that we requested previously was a photometric analysis and a lighting plan, so we're still looking for that. Some speed limit signage recommendations for the development. Stormwater comments are, as Bob mentioned, more technical in nature. I don't think they really are worth going over comment by comment, but probably the one that is most relevant or most important is comment 2 in regard to the drainage area boundaries and the points of analysis used for determining the rate controls. So we'll probably reach out directly to RJ Fisher and kind of coordinate through that and come to a resolve on that. But other than that, pretty well cleaned up, nothing major, still pending.
Okay, thanks, Alex. And any additional comments from the county?
Warren is offline, so let me.
No, I didn't have any. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so Betsy, let's go back. So the design review committee, we met last, was it two Fridays ago? It wasn't last
Yes.
Friday, it was a Friday prior. And Thomas Committa Associates, they provided a review, and that review is part of the packet that you have this evening. And they did have some comments that, as a member of the design review committee, we felt that it would be more appropriate to come before the planning commission and have that discussion. And I'm thinking we should kind of focus on that discussion. So I'm going to either turn to you or Mike to kind of lead that discussion in terms of exactly what was Tom's comment and then the response from Triple Crown at the design review committee and what the township would like the planning commission to do in terms of, it's not really interpretation, because if it's zoning, I'm going to rely on Mike for the interpretation, but just to make sure that we're all on the same page moving forward. So Betsy, if you want to kind of guide us through this process.
Sure. I mean, I can give a little bit of background. Through the text amendment process, the Board of Commissioners entered into an agreement with Triple Crown, basically to ensure that if the property was rezoned, that it would become a townhouse development and not anything else that could go, like not any of the other permitted uses under the BOR. So as part of that, there was, and as we went through the text amendment, as everyone's aware, we did look at a plan very similar to what you have now. But I think the planning commission was very clear, and also in the plan, in the agreement, it states that, you know, this plan is conceptual and it's not tied and it's not providing any differences for, or it's not preventing us going through the DRC process or the land development process. So the first comment that was regarding the additional green space within the front yards. And I don't know, Chris, if you have anything that you want to add from that meeting or?
Good evening, Chris DeSanto, Triple Crown. I wasn't at that meeting. I'm just kind of here to high level this and say, you know, we've got the DCR's design review committee's comments. We're working through them. They've asked for some additional steps. We appreciate Betsy's, you know, efforts and time and everybody's time on that. really what we're here to do today is I think we're going to request that this plan be tabled because we think that with HRG's comments, staff comments, with what we got from the design review committee, that we have some things that need to be cleaned up. We're looking at, I think, in August 20th. That is the next meeting of the design review committee. Hopefully we get everything that needs to be cleaned up then. There's not these comment letters from HRG or the design review committee, and we'll be back, August 23rd, looking to have a little bit cleaner plan, these comments cleaned up, and looking for approval at that point. But I would just want to say appreciate Betsy and staff's time, we appreciate the design review committee's time, HRG and everybody's efforts in this. And I don't know if we need to go line item by line item to this right now, as I think we're still trying to clean that up, unless there's something in particular that you have questions or would like to discuss, which I will do my best to provide answers.
So the only items that if the planning commission is willing to discuss, at least at this point in time, you're asking for 4 waivers. The first one is sidewalk along Elmerton Avenue. The second is curbing. Third one is 2 separate points of ingress and egress. And the fourth has to do with grading on lands sloping 15% and greater. I guess there's a 5th one in the preliminary plan, which is pretty straightforward. Would you like any discussion on the waiver? So as you go through your plan amendment process, you may have a feel from the planning commission on, and I'll open this up to the planning commission if you want to have that discussion or not. I mean,
the only 2 that I would say that, I think from my knowledge of the plan, and I apologize, I'm kind of a last minute substitute here. The sidewalk along Elmerton, just with the slopes in front of our property and connecting it into nothing, crossing the stream, it seems to be more of an environmental concern with the stream crossing. So we've kind of done the connectivity through the community down to the green belt, which then connects into Harris Hills, which then gives you a walking and biking egress along Elmerton. And as I think we've noted, we were connecting across the game commission land into the park there. And then on the points of ingress and egress, we've done the boulevard entrance to attempt to alleviate that. But again, it's the grading concerns and issues and off the back of the site where I think we've talked significantly, there's nowhere to take a road. It's state property. So there's not really anywhere for us to go except out the currently existing driveway. And we're widening that and using a boulevard entrance to create the 2 means of ingress and egress. So I think at this point, that's kind of our thoughts on those, on the curbing and the steep slopes, or the slopes of 15%. If anyone has any input or comments, I think we're happy to listen to them and take them back as we continue to clean up this plan.
so, I mean, this is an opportunity for the commission to have a discussion with the applicant regarding the waivers. If you feel as if we want to honor the request for the plan to be tabled and have that discussion at next month's meeting, we can do that too. I'll leave that up to the commission.
I just had a question on 2 of them, just for more clarity. So on the curbing, and then on the grading and the slopes 15 or greater, I guess is there issues there from a civil perspective why you're asking for those waivers?
Lauren, that's technical.
The curbing, we're requesting that waiver for those units that have the driveways. We're not going to be curbing and then coming down at every driveway. We're just going to be eliminating curb from that section so that the driveways are just going right into the road. And this area is kind of unique because the road is super elevated, so we don't have a crown in the road that would push the water back towards those driveways. It's all flowing towards the side, the inner loop side. So we don't foresee any stormwater issues with no curbs along those driveway units.
So there will be curbs in other parts of the community, it's just the ones?
Yep.
Okay.
That's what I was going to ask, clarify that, Mark.
Yeah.
There will be curbing in other parts, except the ones that have the driveway with the ground.
Yeah, it's really more of like a constructability issue with those driveways than not wanting curb in the whole development, but.
But just to throw the side notice, would probably still require a waiver, but would it make sense to put in a mountable curb? Or would that be an amenable substitute?
I think it's something the developers wanted to avoid just for the sake of like slower cars being in the development and getting onto that curb.
So the thought is just wearing course and that's just it.
And I believe so. And
Just one of those.
and if it wasn't for the stormwater and those roads being super elevated, I think it would be more of a concern that you want something to be catching the water on that side, but
Drainage is all going
Drainage
towards
is
the
all
creek across the whole site.
as far as the steep slopes, there's no area where we're doing a significant like chunk of grading in a really steep area. It's more just there's pockets throughout the site where we're hitting these 12% or greater slopes, and
Should we change the plan? Is there-
that's up to, yeah, sure. I think, yeah, 'cause I do think we have a hatch.
Yeah, if you could point out those areas on the plan, Lauren, that'd be helpful.
Okay. I can give you a ballpark.
What, do you know what shading you want on?
Try like 4 or 5. Oh, actually, these are fine. So there are some areas of steeper slopes back here behind the basin. And then other areas, it's actually kind of behind this bigger basin here, and then this second largest basin in the middle. There's pockets of steep slopes, and we are just grading through them to tie into existing grades. So we'll be grading through them to come off of that basin at a consistent slope instead of coming off it really steep to tie into those steep slopes and then like having to grade again after it. It's gonna end up being, everywhere we're grading is gonna end up being a consistent slope down. And there's no way that, I don't believe there's anywhere that we're building on top of that. It's more just the tie into the existing, the steep slopes are really on the outside edge of the site more than in the central part.
And there's no issue with that as far as stormwater runoff.
No.
So just going back to the sidewalk waiver, for years and years, we have, had this discussion multiple times, and we do have a waiver, a specific waiver process for sidewalk, where we take a look at the cost of the sidewalk, and there's some other items that go into that. And what I don't see in the packet, maybe I haven't come across yet, is an official waiver request letter.
I believe I should have included that in the packet. If not, they did submit one.
Did they submit for the sidewalk? That's
Yes.
the official waiver request?
Yeah, I can pull that up if you want.
No, that's okay.
Okay.
And that we just recently adopted our official map that shows connectivity. So come next month, I'm going to rely upon our planning that we did, right? We did an extensive planning here in the township. And so just from my perspective, and I'll let the other planning commission members speak, I'm going to take a hard look at the waiver and see how consistent or not consistent is with our official map and our comprehensive plan and our goals and objectives for connectivity. So Chris, just go back and, as you guys are talking about this, I know there's environmental constraints in that area, but I just want you to be prepared when you come next month that you're not caught by surprise when we start raising these questions.
Yeah, and I think as we've noted, I think, or as we're showing on the plan, we're doing the best we can to make this connected
Okay.
to the green belt, which connects into Harris Hills and then across to the park. So we're aware of that too. We're looking at that, trying to figure out the best approach. If you guys just adopted it, said this month or last month.
No, it wasn't a few months ago.
2 months ago?
Yeah.
All right, well, then we'll make sure that, we take a look at that and we're cognizant of that as we continue to look at this plan.
Okay, so now, I guess for the people online, if there are any comments so we have a request for the plan to be tabled. We're focusing discussion on the waivers that were requested, but does anybody have any comments who are participating online?
If you do have a comment, you can unmute yourself on this plan.
This is Gary Rothrock. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
There was some discussion during the design review committee about the entrance and exit, and they were going to put a divider between the two lanes that would be low enough that a emergency vehicle could get over it. And I understand that PennDOT initially required a signal at that intersection. And they were trying to avoid the signal by doing, a revision of the entrance and exit. And the more I thought about it, the more I thought that given the sightline distance and the sort of rolling terrain there, that I personally think a signal would be a really added safety feature for this entrance and exit, especially since you've only got one entrance and exit. And I don't know, I understand that costs money and all that, but I really think that would make it a safer situation for all the residents there.
I don't think we're aware of PennDOT ever requesting or asking us to put a signal or us requesting a waiver of any kind of signalization on there. Being it is a state road, so it's their call on that, and I don't think that they've asked for it. I don't think it would meet signal warrant analysis anyways, with just 156 townhomes coming out of it. I don't think they would put a signal on the road for that.
I'm pretty sure that Mr. DeSanto said that they had required that, and that was the reason he was making some changes to the boulevard entryway there, trying to avoid the need for a light. I'm pretty sure that's what he said. Frank, do you recall that?
Honestly, I do not.
I think actually what originally had been planned was a left turn and a right turn. I don't think there was ever any conversation about signalizing that. George had requested the two forms of access in and out, or out, but PennDOT, I believe, is not allowing the left turn or allowing the two lanes. So they're lining it so there's one lane, but keeping it wider so that if cars need to go in through that other side, if there's an emergency, they can still do that. So they can still get access in and out. I believe that, I don't recall any conversation about a signal.
Okay, well, maybe my mistake.
Okay, so hearing no further comments from anybody
I would
else.
like to make a comment, please.
Okay. State your name, please.
Hello, my name is Megan Carnes. I live at 200 Montrose Street. And my comment is that I am universally opposed to sidewalk waivers. I'm a pedestrian advocate, and I don't think we should go through a planning process and create a zoning code that tells us where sidewalks should be if we're just going to let people build without them. You'll hear me repeat this over and over again anytime somebody comes before you and asks for a waiver. I don't think we should do it. We're never going to get an interconnected universal pedestrian transportation system if we keep giving developers an easy way out.
I don't disagree, and that's why I brought that up, to take a look at our planning efforts that we've done in the past and be prepared to have that discussion next month. So thank you for that comment.
We appreciate the comment, and like we said, we'll look into it, and we are cognizant of connectivity and pedestrian activity, and we're looking to do it where it's the safest and most effective, efficient places to do it. So
I have a comment about the ingress egress waiver. Just maybe review the situation where the game commission has not cooperated with the request for access.
So if I recall correctly, which it's been a while since I've looked at this, but I believe that back corner actually butts up to, I think it's PennDOT property or state property, and then comes across into the game commission land. But the game commission, back on their back corner, they have plans to do some buildings back there. I think they're building a new laboratory and another facility back there. So they don't want a road coming through where they're planning on building a building. And there's also some very significant grade. It's a very, very large ravine back there that would require crossing. So I think we're going through state and then game land property, and the game land doesn't want us to come through there because that's where they're planning on building their new laboratory.
That seems a little bit contradictory, to build a building where there's a.
No, not where the
Alley.
building's going to get up to where they're planning on building, where the road would come through is where they're kind of drops off behind what they're planning to build and then comes back up to our site. But that's where the road would be. The only point to bring it through is off our property. It would come up into where they're planning on building their facility.
Have you gotten a statement from them as to their disagreeing with or lack of cooperation?
I believe we did it might have been last year or early this year, but there was definitely conversations about that. We walked the property with them to discuss the plan. And, they said they were amenable to the sidewalk, but they did not want a road coming back through there because that's where they were planning on building additional facilities for their use.
And I know we do have paperwork that was submitted regarding the agreement with the state to do the sidewalk across from Enclave to Veterans Park for the trail.
And that include the game commission's.
I don't know if it talks about I'd have to look to see if it talks about the actual vehicular access. Double check that.
Maybe we could check that just to.
Yep.
Verify that it's a dead end for sure.
Add on that real quick. So that we actually did a site walk at the Game Commission. They denied access due to the location of their geothermal wells. So where the road would lie is where their geothermal wells are located. They flat out denied access. So it's.
Appreciate that. Someone has a better memory than me.
Any other questions from the commission? Okay, so as you requested, there's a number of comments that you need to clean up, and then we'll look forward to the plan back here in August. The 90-day deadline is September 26th, so we'll need to either take action in August or be prepared for a time extension. So, and since it's already on the table, there's no need to make a motion on this plan.
Appreciate everyone's
Okay.
time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to agenda item number 2, Kaufman and Ross Nickel.
Good evening. My name is Cody Jones with Burgett & Associates Land Surveyors. And I represent the Kaufman Gross Nickel subdivision lot addition plan. Pretty simple plan at the intersection of Wilhelm Road and Beaufort Street. There's 2 existing lots there. One is approximately 1.3 acres and the other existing lot is approximately a half acre. The 1.3 is the Kaufman tract, the half acre is the Gross Nickel tract. The whole intent of the property is to subdivide a 0.4 acre and change piece off the Kaufman tract and add it to Gross Nickel. That's pretty much the whole gist of the plan. No new improvements, anything like that. Just a simple lot addition.
Okay. So before we go into a review process, this is the type of plan that I would like the planning commission to be able to take action on. So we be done with this activity this evening. So just as an example, as I'm talking about this. So, okay. So Betsy, anything you want to point out to us?
My comments were very minor. The only one that I do want to note is that since we do talk about sidewalks so frequently, that because the way the ordinance is written, a sidewalk waiver is not required when you're doing a single lot development of no more than 3 units where 75% of the property fronts on the area and does not have sidewalk. So none of the properties in this area have sidewalk. The whole subdivision does not have sidewalk. So they would be exempt from having to go through the waiver request.
Okay, thank you. And Bob, anything?
As Betsy indicated, since the plan is rather simple and straightforward, we had some very minor comments under subdivision plan developments regarding some location map issues, reconfiguration of the lot that we're asking for a property corner, monuments and markers, clarification about the side yard setback. Wilhelm Road is a typo, spelled incorrectly. And other than that, it's just very minor items included in our report, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. And the county, I see that you have one pretty minor comment, so. Okay, anybody from our online group would like to comment on this plan? I didn't think so. Anybody from the planning commission like to make a comment on this plan? I didn't think so either. So we do have a waiver or modification request. It's a section 22-404, which is the preliminary plan procedures. Do I hear a motion to recommend approval of the requested waiver of section 404?
So moved.
Do I hear a second on that motion?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say yes.
Yes.
Opposed say no. Okay, that's been recommended for approval. Under here, a motion to recommend approval of the plan subject to the township comments, HRG's comments, and the Dauphin County Planning Commission comments.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion to recommend approval of the plan subject to all the comments. I hear a second on that motion.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say yes.
Yes.
Opposed say no. Okay,
Thank you very much.
thank you. Okay, moving on to our next agenda item, Susquehanna Union Green, pages 3A and 3B.
Good evening. First, I just want to say it's nice to see everybody again. It's been
Likewise.
a little bit. We're excited that our development is, as you guys know, is being here in the township, moving rapidly. Lots of dirt moving. Just really quickly, I'm Catherine Wilsbach from the Bartown Group. I believe Ralph Bartan is has dialed in from vacation, so I believe he's one of the callers on your screen. I saw his number, Betsy. Also from our team, this is Luke Gintelsberger from HF Lund, who's our civil engineer. Cole Conway from our office is here. She's our executive vice president and general counsel. And we also have Dave Schutte from Troutman Pepper, who helped put together some of the text amendment items that we'll talk about later in this meeting. What you see before you is our.
Let me just interject just for the commission. Because I've done work for the Bartans over the years, I normally step back from any, if there's something becomes controversial, that I'm not involved in this project, but I'm filling in on for Tara, who's on vacation. So if it does become a big issue, I'll have to step back.
I had many tough questions.
We're trying to
Yeah, see, I knew you set us up, didn't you?
So what you see before you is our final land development plans for phase 3, 3A and 3B. Were previously approved in our preliminary land development plans. Through extensive conversations with the design review committee meeting, we did take what was previously proposed to be, approved with preliminary land development and shown on our regulating plans to be a commercial block of our development. And we have redesigned it to include 5 multifamily five multifamily buildings. We're working with Landmark Homes, who's our partner for our single family homes. And they have, again, been in front of the DRC through 3 meetings actually to really merge their multifamily product with, with our site specifically. And the design you see before you really reflects that. Through that, after that process and working with the township, we did go forward to final land development. And I think really what you see before you is a good merge of that. We did make sure that design led this approach. We didn't just take our commercial buildings and say like, okay, these now are just replaced with multifamily residential. So we wanted to make sure we continue to be really design focused as far as layout goes. We did receive the comments from the township and HRG earlier this afternoon. We don't foresee any issues addressing them and are happy to answer any questions you might have about it. In total, we're talking about this parcel, phases 3A and 3B are approximately like 3.4 acres of disturbance on the entire site. And of course, it just fits, very well into what we really believe to be a significant traditional neighborhood development here in Susquehanna Township. From the beginning of this process, we hoped there would be more residential uses on the site. And so I think with market conditions and kind of being reflective of the demands in our region, we are able to accommodate it.
Okay, thank you. Before we get into discussion, and Betsy, you can probably back me up on this. I mean, this was what, 4 meetings with the design review committee?
At least the first time, no, that we just had another one now that they actually officially submitted it. But yeah, we went through several meetings and a charrette with La Quattrobonzi and our planning consultant, Thomas Committa, to kind of get a good layout that allows for open space and follows along with what was originally approved as the office, but provides more opportunities.
Yeah, I have to say that the original submission was kind of linear in nature. And so again, through a collaborative approach, at least from my input, I mean, what we see here this evening is more in line with how I feel the development is actually being developed. And I think it's going to be a nice asset for that development and for the township, removing some of that commercial activity along Progress. So with that, we do have some comments. Betsy, anything you want to point out to us?
Sure. Just as we're aware, a regulating plan needs to be approved when there's a major change to the originally approved plan. So they are submitting that. You'll see that in the text amendment attached. And then our current ordinance for multifamily only allows a maximum of 18 units per building. So that's also going to be, you should have a copy of a revised text amendment on your desk. So that will also be part of that text amendment. I did say our ordinance obviously requires that a traffic study occur for the projects with 50 or more dwelling units. Alex has kind of looked at that and basically the change from to residential is actually a lower amount of traffic. So I don't know if that's something that we need to do a waiver for.
We did talk to our traffic consultant TPD as well when we started this process, and he also concurred that right now it actually reduces the peaks because we're talking about residential. But we are happy to provide an addendum as well. We could also do a waiver, Betsy, but we're happy to provide it. Super viable comment. And just from our perspective, it was one of the first questions we double checked as far as traffic and the concerns go.
That's all I really
Okay, thanks, Betsy. Bobby, have anything you want to point out to us?
Yes, we have a review letter dated July 23rd. There are most, as you would expect, most technically oriented comments, but I'd like to ask Alex to review that in detail. And oh, by the way, Ken, you said about traffic. I think it would be helpful for the planning commission and the commissioners to have a letter from TPD indicating documenting the fact that the traffic volumes with the proposed change from non-residential to residential will reduce the traffic volume at that intersection.
No, certainly, we agree that we think that would, help. And just put that issue, clearly resolve it.
Okay. In regard to our comments, nothing too major. Again, photometric analysis and lighting plan and such for the, particularly the parking area, to ensure that there's safe lighting available during night hours. Comment number 2 under Saldo, in regard to some slopes that look fairly steep for the area that they're being proposed along building C and kind of there at the corner of D as well, adjacent to this sidewalk. I think they're running right around 3 to 1, which is pretty steep. So the layout of the buildings aren't particularly clear as far as where the frontage of, where the residential frontage is going to be, if there's going to be any kind of access or, maybe children using it for recreational use and such. So I don't know, just something to consider that it seems to be pretty sloped in that little area.
There is a significant, we did have a lot of conversations about this through our DOC meeting too. There's a significant amount of grade on this piece of property, especially when you try to put, sorry, when you try to put flat
You can
buildings.
take it off if you need to.
When you try to put flat buildings on there, these plans we can certainly add detail as far as accessibility goes. There has been a good amount of, significant amount of coordination with Landmark as far as the entrances and ADA accessibility. Some of their general preferences as far as retaining walls and 2 to 3 steps for accessibility that they see. And they've also specifically focused on how many ADA accessible units they need and where they'd be located. So we can be more clear on that too, Alex, just to.
Sure, yeah, so that kind of addresses one of my other comments in regard to, it seems like there's some limited availability to ADA access in B, C, and D. But Kat just pretty much addressed that and agreed to take a second look at that maybe. Some of the building elevations as they correlate to the top stair elevations seem to be a little off, so we just ask that they take a second look at that to make sure that all these elevations are going to tie in together. As Kat mentioned, there's a significant amount of grade on the site, so just want to make sure that everything's consistent in that matter. Stop signs potentially internally, certainly at the exits, and then internally in the parking area, particularly in the area of building E and D, where it kind of comes to a pinch point almost. Seems like there would be a lot of movement in there that could potentially use some control. So I ask that you would take a look at that as well.
That's a good comment, thanks.
Stormwater, the only real major comment, and it's probably just more of a line work issue, is that it seems to discharge to stormwater manhole 17, which is shown as a stub out. So certainly before any construction activities occur.
Yeah, we'll make that. We were intending to make the connection down to this basin, of course, and that was, I believe that was done under construction bond 1, where we eliminated underground detention system 3.
Yep.
We laid all that stormwater there. And I know there was a comment there about pipe sizes. We'll get those calculations to you.
Yeah, sure. So again, just on the final plan, make sure that we're showing connectivity to the stormwater management facility. I think with the requested conveyance calcs and such, that there shouldn't be any issues. So that pretty much wraps up our comment letter.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. So I saw the recommendation from the township was no action on this plan this evening. I guess to allow for the text amendment and kind of move forward. So, right, Betsy, is that the way I read your?
Yeah.
Okay.
I just don't want to put the cart before the horse.
Yeah, I agree. I do have one question unrelated to this plan.
Sure.
Before I forget, Panera Bread.
Yeah.
So how are you guys going to connect the sidewalk?
Oh, Luke and I.
How are you going to connect the sidewalk
Yeah,
from
we were
Panera
just-
Bread over to what's existing over?
We were just talking about that. We actually do have, there's an RFI during the construction process. The sidewalk actually does dip down closer to the right of way. It kind of skirts the right of way until the very end, and then it connects to the adjacent property. There's not to get into much detail, there's a pipe that needs
That's
to be
fine.
extended there. So we were just going through that
That's
process.
fine.
Yeah, but
Every time I drive by, I'm like, how are they going to make that connection?
No, we are, we promise. The sidewalk's going in.
Anybody online would like to comment on this plan?
I have a message from Tanya, who's asking if she can ask a question that's not specific to this plan.
Sure, why not? I asked a question not specific to the plan, so I have to
Tanya, I
answer
don't
my
know if you heard
own.
that, you
my
can
own-
unmute
yeah.
yourself and ask the question.
Hi, thank you. Can you hear me, I hope? Are you able to hear?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. Thank you for letting me ask a question not specific to the plan. What makes a plan have to come back to the planning committee? What kind of changes are significant enough to trigger re-review or the necessity of a review by this group?
I apologize, but I, don't have a ready answer for that significant.
That's fine.
For a general answer.
You want to give it a shot?
No, not really.
Betsy, you want to give it a shot?
Essentially, and what it boils down to is when the plan comes in, it's reviewed by township staff, township engineer, as well as Dauphin County Planning Commission. And depending on the number and severity of the comments, the plan is either passed on to the board or it's tabled and comes back for review by the Planning Commission again once the developer has had a chance to address the comments.
Yeah, I would just say generally, there's nothing statutorily that would require us, the planning commission, to review the plan again, unless they withdrew the plan and then resubmitted. I don't know if that's 100% accurate. I would.
So there's no material change, I don't know, not rule or consideration that would make the planning commission want or need to look at a plan again?
What she's asking is if a plan was recommended for approval by the board, by the planning commission, and it went to the board and there was changes during the, where it was reviewed by the board, is there anything that would require it to go back to?
No, under the MGC, no. And normally, part of that process is constrained because of the deemed approval deadlines. And, it's a comment process, but then once it feeds to the commissioners, they really are making that decision based on all the input. Now, presumably, you could have all the parties agree to some special extension and a mutual agreement to send it back for, some more input on a specific thing. But in terms of the actual intended legal process, it's local and county planning commissions, staff, and engineers, everything, providing the information to the commissioners, make a decision, and it does not get remanded back to the planning commission without.
So what if the information submitted was completely incorrect? The size of the lot, for instance, being 8% different than what they told the planning commission that it was. That's not a new plan?
Well, yeah, so if the application didn't have the information, and I can't imagine how it could get to that point because it's.
Nor can we.
Yeah, but like I said, you could have the plan denied for that reason, or you could have almost an agreement. Because again, the normal path, critical path of this would be the input all goes in, and normally it's vetted, analyzed, by the municipal engineers, et cetera, to try to make sure, everything makes sense, consistent with the ordinance, and then point out in all these comments, here are the things you need a waiver, et cetera. Obviously, it could be, this is so flawed that everybody might agree to start it over without having to file a new application. But presumably, if you had a basis to deny it, it would get denied.
So I guess my question is, the question was unrelated to this. The plan that's before us for phase 3A and 3B, is there a specific question about the T&D overall, or is this just a general question about any plan?
What's T&D?
About any plan, or about this plan?
No, it was not about this plan.
Okay, so
It was about process. I'm sorry. I don't know how else to pose these questions.
related question about the plan, but not this phase that we're talking about. So let's do this. So any other questions on this plan, on this specific plan from the Planning Commission or the public that's online?
This is Gary Rothrock. I noted in Betsy's comments that there was an issue of 24 units per building versus 18 allowed in the ordinance. I was wondering how that is going to be addressed.
That is being handled with the modified text amendment.
That's our next agenda item.
Correct.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
But this might be a good example of a plan that's changed. If this proposal would go to the Board of Commissioners after having been approved without coming through the Planning Commission, I think that would be a substantive change to the plan, going from commercial to residential. But in this case, the developer is coming to the Planning Commission and following the procedures. But because of the extensive review procedure that we go through, that the chances of that happening should be very unlikely, unless somebody forgets to look at things when they're submitted for final approval to the commissioners.
I don't want to disrupt their presentation, but I would like to speak after this if possible.
Okay, let's move on. Let's kind of separate these issues because I think they're getting mixed together, and I don't want you guys being subject to these mixed comments coming in. So
No, and that's okay. We just appreciate the township's collaboration on this. We appreciate those who attended our phase 5, which is our single family home groundbreaking. We've worked like hand in hand with Landmark on this project and these multifamily units. So as always, we appreciate the collaboration and your time and efforts. I'm sure that's where the answers will call us. I call her a lot.
okay, with that, hearing no further comments, or hear a motion to table action on this plan.
Just one comment, Frank, Ralph Barton here on the phone, and just wanted to just get on the record and saying hello to everybody. And I'm bummed that I can't be there in person, but I'm not that bummed because I'm actually on vacation today. But I just wanted to chime in and echo what Kat was saying, and just thanks for all the always helpful criticism and allowing us to to meet multiple times with the DRC and get helpful comments and advice to help push the plan in the right direction. So thanks.
Okay, thanks, Ralph. Okay, so we have a motion to table action on plan. Or a second on that motion?
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say yes.
Yes.
Opposed say no. Okay, we'll see you next month.
I mean, actually, we'll see us.
Okay. And just let the Planning Commission know I need to leave here at 7. So you have a few minutes to make a presentation. If you want my input. If not, take your time.
Good evening, Nicole Conway with the Barton Group, and we are presenting a text amendment which will reflect all the things that you just saw in our phase 3A and 3B plan regarding multifamily on the site at Susquehanna Union Green. The ordinance that you have is intended to increase the multifamily maximum from 30% to 40% on the site. And the other change that we are proposing is to address the cross-reference to multifamily that's in the zoning ordinance contained in the TMD that has a maximum number of units per building that is permissible. What we're proposing to do is to make reference to the regulating plan, which would allow Planning Commission and Board of Commissioners to approve a regulating plan that will then specifically note the number of units that will be in each building. Reason for doing that is that it gives all of us a little bit more flexibility. It allows you to actually look specifically at the plan and see what the buildings are going to look like instead of just coming up with an arbitrary number. It will address this multifamily proposal here for phase 3A and 3B, but it will also address the multifamily in phase 4, which is our senior living facility. Open it to any questions. I'm keeping it quick so Frank can get out of here. And again, this all came about, again, this comes from the plan that came through the design process with the DRC and with the township and all of your input. And this is how we ended up at this size, this number of units was all based on input from the township.
When you speak of what the plans or what the buildings will look like, you're talking about the site placement, not the architectural.
Correct. Yeah, architectural will be considered through the design review committee process, of course, but also too, just, you know, as you saw right before with the way the buildings lay out on the site, clearly the size of the building will dictate the number of units that can be contained in those buildings, and how we lay those out on the site will make a difference.
So is the intent here to, or remember if I was reading correct, to take the current zoning density from 18 to 24? That was the.
No, it's to take multifamily density from 30% to 40%.
30 to 40%
It's the number of units. Yes, it's 40% of the site, up to 40% of the site would be multifamily.
Gotcha. But the per building, is that also?
Correct. So instead of putting a specific number of units in this text amendment, what we have done, you can see it, it's in, so under section 1903, sub number 4, multifamily dwellings in accordance with section 27-2008, except as otherwise approved on the regulating plan. So we would specifically note the number of units that are in each building on the regulating plan. And then that would be subject to approval when we submit. Each land development plan has to have a regulating plan attached. So that would be subject to approval.
So I thought we dealt with this one, another issue before, and this kept coming back up as far as like our density per building. I mean, pretty low compared to
So it's 18 units per building. Back in, I believe it was 2015, there was a text amendment to allow more for age-restricted buildings. I don't know if Mike can give the exact number because I don't remember what it is.
It was 55 and over, and it was.
Yeah, for that was for cherry orchard.
Yeah.
51. Thank you, Mr. City.
Just with the cost of new construction, for us to be capped at 18, it's just not really economically feasible.
So instead of making an amendment to the zoning ordinance overall, which would change multifamily numbers for everyone, that was not our intent. We wanted to make it apply specifically to the TND so that this was for projects that are traditionally road development 1 zoning. That's why we did it that way. We put it under the regulating plan instead of making an amendment to the multifamily ordinance.
So 40% of the development can be multifamily.
Correct.
So that sets aside so much acreage.
Yes.
And then based upon that acreage, based upon parking and everything else you have to do, that leaves X number of units that you can put, like you can, as long as you meet the, how do you come up with the number of units? Maybe I missed that discussion.
I think the number of units is dependent on how the buildings are going to lay out on the site. So
plus parking.
Yeah, so you have constraints on, you have constraints on the property that only will allow you X number of buildings. So if you can get 18 units per building or 25 units per building, it's however the site lays out that you're allowed to go up to. But you have to have parking, stormwater, all that, everything that's associated with it.
Right.
Okay.
I think that's what we talked about a couple of years ago, was allowing the property to dictate density based on constraints
I think you
versus arbitrary number.
I think you have the architectural design process that's going to help mold that, you know, that you don't have like one enormous building that has, 50 units in it, you're going to kind of self-limit itself by that.
And then we still have the height criteria and everything else. That's
So the design stuff is going to dictate it.
I think that makes some sense.
And I'll have to look to see what the proposed zoning ordinance has in relationship to how many units per building, if that's something that we want to change, or keep the same.
Okay. Well, for me, I'm a proponent of having residential in this development. I've been saying that since day one, and I'm glad to see that that's moving forward. So whatever we can do to kind of promote this change, I would support. So. Any comments from our online viewers? Anybody?
Lauren, do you have any comments from the county on this? I know the revision just came in today, so.
Yeah, I didn't have a chance to look over it today yet, so I can let you know if I do later.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody from the public here would like to speak on this? Any Bob, Mike, anybody? Okay.
I just have one other just quick question. On these units, I see something where it says commercial floor ground. Is the design, are you planning to go up, is this a 3-story building, 2-story building?
3-story, 3-story walk-up.
Okay. Then it says live work part. Are you guys planning for that at this point, or is it still too early?
No,
That's the plan from Landmark, yeah.
Oh, okay, so the plan from Landmark is to do like kind of first floor office or?
No.
Oh,
Three-story,
no,
all
just
residential.
all residential.
I'm sorry,
Okay.
I didn't get that.
Oh, no problem. I just saw where it says apartments above ground for commercial uses.
I think they were in there already.
Yeah, I
The
think
use
it's
is already
already,
allowed.
yeah,
that
it's
was
already
already.
an existing
Yeah.
use.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was from the original, when we originally
Yeah.
wanted to rezone this property, there was some, intent to try and mix in residential wherever possible, which would include having some live work types of units. And, that may happen in the future. We're not there yet. But for this particular area of the site, it's all residential.
All residential, okay.
Okay. Mr. Shuddy, anything? Okay. So hearing nothing from the Planning Commission nor our online viewers, what's your desire? We can recommend approval, we can table it. We can recommend denial. Anybody have a motion on this text amendment?
I'll make a motion that we move this on and approve it to the board of supervisors.
Okay, and I would just ask that you subject it to the county comments.
Correct.
Okay, so we have a motion to recommend approval of the text amendment with a one comment that would be subject to the county review and any concerns that they may have being addressed. Do I hear a second on that motion?
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, say no. Okay, so part one of your plan is moving forward, and then we'll take care of the physical plan hopefully next month. And with that, I do need to excuse myself. If you want to take over. Okay.
Municipal now?
Okay, basically, I think we're down to communication section. Did the Tri-County Planning Commission have any comments? Yeah.
I didn't have anything further, so thank you.
Okay. In lieu of that, we have a guest who'd like to make some comments at this time concerning.
Hi, I'm Debbie Tramontine. I live at 205 Montrose Street. I apologize for our disrupting the prior presentation. It came to the attention of one of our residents that the plan that was submitted before you for 3405 North Front Street had a material difference in the length of the Montrose Street boundary. It's 24 feet shorter than what they told you it was. The plan that they submitted is incorrect. I don't know how that happened or how it got through. That's for engineers and surveyors and things like that. They said at the meeting on Thursday night that it was because of snow, that they picked the wrong pin to measure from. We wanted to comment to you all, or I personally wanted to comment to you all, that we think that them redrawing this plan, which they'll have to do and they admitted they're doing, means it should come back in front of planning. Again, it's 8% difference between what they said it was and what it is. So that's my comment. And that was the reason for our question. And I know we have some other residents from Montrose Street online as well. So maybe someone else wants to say something. And thank you for hearing me.
Thank you. Any comments from our virtual meeting attendees? Just on what was presented on the previously approved or previously recommended approval plan from the Planning Commission. Nobody has any comments at this. Betsy, do you have any thoughts on the situation that's been raised?
I do have a comment. I'm sorry if it's not too late.
Yes, go ahead. No, it's not too late. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. My name is Megan Carnes, and yes, the developers of that project did talk about this discrepancy in the lot size, and it's material, because my understanding is that part of the reason why they requested a sidewalk waiver was because the sidewalk would not fit in the right-of-way based on their inaccurate measurements, which they presented to you and you voted on. But now they're admitting that those measurements were not right, and there likely is enough room in the right-of-way to fit a sidewalk. So you, as the Planning Commission, recommended a waiver based in part on information that the developer is now saying is inaccurate. I just want to make sure you know that.
Thank you for those comments. Betsy, do you have any?
I can't comment. I mean, I don't know what our direction would be. I would think our attorneys would have to.
How do I get on here? How do I say something?
Looks like there's someone else who's speak on the.
Oh, excuse me. Before we turn to our solicitor, was there anyone else who wants to make a comment on this?
Yes. My name is John Heaps. I live at 3497 Green Street. If the size of the plot is different than what was submitted, I think as a resident of the area, I would like to see what a new plan looks like before making comment on if it seems to us to be adaptable to our neighborhood. So I think this new piece of information makes it important for us to see a new plan. Thank you.
Thank you.
But I would like to clarify that, I mean, they will be submitting a plan to the board for their review. I just don't know what would require, legally, what would require the Planning Commission to review it again. If it is a discrepancy in the boundaries, or if that boundary change is going to make a substantial difference to the plan.
Yeah, I think that's important to state, and maybe our solicitor would amplify those comments. Or
Yeah, well, I was going to say, I don't have the details of
Sorry to
that
bring you
plan
in on this.
discrepancy or really what the true magnitude is, et cetera. The municipality's planning code doesn't really contemplate a concept of it moving back and forth. On the other hand, it really could be to a point where even the developer would agree, it should go back, but there's not a legal requirement that it come back. Now, obviously, those comments would come before the commissioners. Look, this was wrong. Here's the magnitude. So don't rely upon that, the recommendation of the planning commission, and obviously the commissioners could take that into effect. But again, we're normally on a timeline, and obviously there's even a theoretical possibility that the planning commission never weighs in because, if you have it for the requisite number of days and they are on a timeline, they have to move forward with the commissioners, they can move forward as long as you've had enough review time, even without your comments and input.
Has the
I
plan
don't know
been
if you, I don't know
approved?
if you'll recall, no, it has not. If you
Okay.
recall, they would not grant us a waiver, so, because we had requested that. They give us more time to discuss the plan and they wanted to go to the board of commissioners.
Okay.
So they've now granted the board of commissioners a couple waivers, or of time, to continue review. So I believe it's going to be reviewed in August.
And we look at you as a protection mechanism for us. And we believe you should get a chance to see this again and make your recommendations to the board, because it is different. 8% is different in anybody's line of work. And especially with math, it's a huge percentage. It's a huge impact to our neighborhood. We're not happy about it, obviously, but we feel like you should have a chance to weigh in again on what they're asking to do here. It's a permanent thing. It's not gonna be undone once it's done. So I hope you all are given the opportunity to do the job that you were put in place to do, to take a look again. And to me, it's a complete resubmission. I mean, they're redrawing it. So again, not an engineer, but I think most engineers would tell you when they're doing something that significantly different, that it is a new plan. It is not the same plan. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, this plan has been an interesting experience for me, and I'm a little bit not sure what the proper word is to say, but to describe the situation. But I think, first of all, I want to thank you for your confidence in us as you're looking at us for protection. I'm not sure that is fully warranted, but we'll do our best to give it a fair review and consider the concerns of the neighbors if we're given the chance to review it. Mr. Grubik, do you have any experience that you'd want to share with us on this type of situation?
The issue at hand relates to a discrepancy between the deed and the plan that was submitted. The municipality's planning code nor township ordinances addresses a determination of the accuracy of the boundary survey, which is under the purview of the developer's engineer or surveyor to certify as to its accuracy. Township cannot check every plan that comes in with regard to the difference between deeds and what is shown on the plan as property lines. So my suggestion would be, let's see what the revised plan looks like. The developer's engineer has indicated they will be making revision to the plan based on the corrected boundary lines and the dimensions of the boundaries, and just to see what, if any, impact that particular distance or discrepancy in distances has on the land development plan itself.
Thank you. Those comments were also very helpful. So I think we will anticipate the resubmission of the plan at some point in the next month or so.
Yeah, I don't know that we know that. Right?
No, I don't know that you will see the plan again.
Oh,
Like,
okay.
we have to determine whether or not, and again, that would be
That's
legal
simple,
counsel that, it's not that simple.
Yeah, okay.
We don't generally, as Mr. Diamond stated, send plans back to the planning commission.
All right. Well, thank you for those cautionary comments. So I might offer a suggestion to the citizens or the neighbors of that area, and that if they've not been formally in contact with the commissioners, you should send a letter or some formal communication to them asking for a reconsideration of the plan. It's a suggestion, so take it for what it's worth. Okay, any other comments from the commissioner to the planning commission on this matter? Guess we shouldn't comment any further, probably said enough.
I think the other recommendation would be, obviously, there will be public input at the commissioner level, and that we should come forward during that
Carrie? Hi,
Yes.
This is Jody Rabarchak, First Ward Commissioner. I just had a question about going forward. I was surprised, like most others, to find out that a plan with a discrepancy of that size was recommended to the Board of Commissioners. So my thought was, how do we prevent something like this from happening in the future going forward? I was thinking, of course, we trust the professionals who make submissions to us, but I'm thinking trust but verify. But now I'm hearing that we don't verify the submissions, and I don't understand that. So we just take them at their word that everything's correct, and if someone hadn't caught this, if a resident hadn't caught this error, it wouldn't be corrected right now. They wouldn't be redrawing the plan. So I'm wondering going forward, and maybe it's not a question for you, Carrie, but for staff and professionals, how do we prevent this from happening in the future?
But I don't want to speak for Bob, but I think what Bob was saying was that the municipalities don't pay the engineer to go out and survey or get a surveyor. That onus is properly on the developer. They have to have, certified, registered surveyors and licensed engineers, et cetera, that are supposed to put their seal on, that they have triple check, verified, et cetera. Now, the municipal engineer looks at the consistency of what's there and those things. Again, I have not seen the details of what was off or why. And I will say sometimes you get weird things like old deeds that used to go to the middle of the street, and all, different things. So I don't know the genesis of this, what exactly happened, or the details.
We compared it to the deed, the GIS, and the tax record that's there online. So you just go on the Dauphin County.
So yeah, let me point out when people refer to the GIS, that's emphatically wildly loose. That's not legally can't be considered. That's not a.
There's a button on the Dauphin County property tax website to click and to see the boundaries.
Yeah, and what I'm saying is, from legal perspective, that's a general approximation for the assessor to say, here's where these things are. Yeah. They can never, you're not allowed, like when you go into court, we're not allowed to say, look at the GIS map specifically for these are the boundaries. That's a much more detailed thing where surveyors go out.
It's a tool, but it's not.
Yeah, it's not even at a registered level.
And they did pull the deed and checked it on the plan.
Yeah, so the deed is where you start, and then sometimes deeds have errors. Yeah, in more modern times, when you have, you look at these plans, they are supposed to be very much surveyed, measured, et cetera. When you go back to, a lot of these things are going back to 1920 or whatever, it's, there are places, not so much in town, but, you have a country and find old deeds, and it's start at the old wooden tree, go past the barking dog by, 3 steps.
I'm a victim of that system. So
but the reality is municipalities don't ever and really can't take on the burden of hiring a separate surveyor to go out to follow, see what the other surveyor did.
I'd like to follow up on my comment. Jim, no one was suggesting that the township go out and resurvey properties. This was just as simple as looking at the deed, and you're saying deeds are widely inaccurate, but the applicant agreed. Well, you said the deed, but so the applicant agreed that the measurements were inaccurate and the deed was correct. So just a simple fact of looking at the deed and noticing a large discrepancy might cause someone to look into this further and correct the error before we get so far down the road.
Yeah, and I guess you could pay your municipal engineer to try to follow the beats down and redo it. It's not normally done, and I don't know what the additional expense would be.
Yeah, I mean, it's a troublesome issue in this particular case. I think for the most part, we don't have those kind of discrepancies in the plans that we get. And I'm probably going to go out on a limb here and could be sued, but in this particular case, the developer has been less than honest with us as a planning commission and as a township from the very beginning on a variety of things. So to base future actions on the part of the planning commission and the township in general and our engineer, I don't say that it's an overreaction, but it may be something that we can give some thought in the future as to how we can validate or how we can look at the accuracy of this of future deeds. I can say for personal experience, sometimes it's tough to get two surveyors to agree to what the boundaries are, what the markings are. And the fact that we're now using satellite surveys to tie in different boundary marks property boundaries can even further complicate the situation. So from a technical standpoint, surveys are a science and art unto itself. So I understand your concern, Mr. Rybarczyk, and it's well taken. But I think in this particular case, it's a special situation that probably is not going to be seen in future plans, subdivision plans. I won't say that it won't happen, but your concern for accuracy in the future is well noted, and I think we'll just have to take that on a case-by-case basis. I think as we get engineered or get experience with different neighborhoods, I'm sure Mr. Grubik will be sensitive to those boundary discrepancies in the future, and based on his experience over the years, he'll know where there's some problem areas with surveys and could alert us to that based on past experience. I know in my own neighborhood, I have a situation where the boundaries are disagreed upon, and unfortunately, township records have been destroyed with regard to early subdivisions, and we're at a point where, you know, maybe it'd be two surveyors flipping a coin as to where the boundary points are with regard to my lot. So to summarize, I think we recognize the situation, and we just have to take it on a case-by-case basis as we get these plans. And if, Commissioner, if you run across any situations or cases where some other communities have experienced this kind of thing and have a means of checking for boundaries and so forth, you know, we appreciate you sharing that with us, and we probably most likely try to apply it if it was worthwhile. So that's a long way of going about responding to your question, but does anyone else have further comment on this issue?
Megan Carnes had asked to speak again.
Okay, Ms. Cairns, please offer your comments.
Hello, yes. I feel like we're conflating this, that there's some kind of dispute about the boundary. There's no dispute about the boundary here. According to the developer, the error was that the surveyors went out in the snow or something like that. This isn't about old deeds and inaccurate maps. This is about a surveyor going out in the snow and messing everything up. And so let's not muddy the water here about what this is about. They submitted a plan that was materially wrong. And if they just waited for the snow to melt and did their survey then, it would have been accurate and we wouldn't be here right now. So maybe the answer is they shouldn't do surveys when there's snow on the ground.
Okay, thank you for that comment. Okay, any comments from from planning commission members on any other issues before planning commission? And that discussion we just had. Betsy, could you give us a quick update on the planning commission or the zoning and Saldo amendments?
So zoning is being finalized. I keep saying I hope to get it to you shortly. I know we had a lot on the agenda this month, so I'm assuming a lot of these will also be on the agenda next month, but I do hope to have that out, at least for our initial review shortly. Almost all the chapters are done of the Saldo as well. We're just reviewing those for the first round of reviews.
Thank you.
Getting closer.
Yeah. And we understand, I think, that lots happening and we want to get it right. So it takes, it'll take as long as it takes to get to the final review point. So I guess at this point, if there are no other comments, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
And moved and adjourned, or moved in the second, and then we adjourn the planning commission. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
As opposed, hearing none, meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for your comments.
Night, John boy.
Night, George.